This is the story of Sophia Maria Martinez, an 18-year-old who went out for a simple night of fun and never came home. Before we explore the case, if you'd like to support the channel, hit the subscribe button and stay active. It really helps a lot. Now, let's get into it. Something that can never be bought, replaced, or restored. Tragically, for many, the true weight of that realization only comes with time, sometimes too late. Yet there are those who seem to view life as disposable, something they can snatch away without hesitation, all for reckless gain or selfish desire. The disappearance and death of a young woman named Sophia Maria Martinez would shake the quiet city of El Paso, Texas, and eventually stun the entire nation. What began as a routine Friday night, a simple night out with friends, ended in horror. She went to a party and never came back. What followed was a chilling mystery, a devastating revelation, and a family forever changed. Sophia Maria Martinez was born on November 14, 1981, in El Paso. She was the middle of three daughters born to Juan and Lourdes Martinez, a hard-working couple who had emigrated from Mexico in the late 1970s, seeking a better life. They built their future from the ground up, juggling multiple jobs to provide for their daughters, Elsa, the eldest, Sophia, the dreamer, and Marianne, the youngest. The three sisters were inseparable, raised in a home filled with love, culture, and tradition. But when Sophia was just 12 years old, her parents divorced. It was a painful transition, one that marked the family in ways they couldn't fully understand at the time. The girls stayed with their mother, who later remarried a successful businessman named Eladio Lucho and had two more children. Their father, Juan, also started a new family, though his contact with Sophia and her sisters gradually declined. Despite the distance, Sophia never carried resentment. She embraced her blended family and formed a warm bond with her stepfather, often helping her mother care for the younger children. She was kind, gentle, and mature beyond her years, a true source of strength in the household. She was especially close to her younger sister, Marianne. They weren't just siblings, they were best friends. At 15, Sophia began working part-time at a local shopping mall as a sales associate. Every paycheck brought her closer to a goal she had long dreamed of, buying a bright red Pontiac sports car. She saved meticulously, and when she turned 18, her mother and stepfather surprised her by covering the remaining cost. That November, Sophia drove off the dealership lot in her shiny new Pontiac, a symbol of her independence and determination. She loved that car. It was spotless, inside and out. She never let anyone else drive it, and she handled it with pride. It wasn't just transportation, it was the reward of hard work and a vision realized. By the spring of 2000, Sophia was preparing for graduation. She had big plans. She wanted to attend the University of Texas and major in history, eventually becoming a teacher. Prom season was in full swing, and she spent weekends with Marianne shopping for the perfect dress, accessories, and the right shade of lipstick. In her senior yearbook photo, wearing her cap and gown, she radiated confidence and excitement. Though many boys were interested in her, Sophia had never been in a serious relationship. School, work, and family always came first. She was focused, grounded, but one day, a co-worker at the mall, a young man named Justin, suggested introducing her to a friend of his. Sophia hesitated at first, but eventually agreed to a casual night out, a blind date, just something fun. The plan was simple: meet up at a local nightclub that allowed 18+ entry. It was one of the few places in town where they could legally hang out and dance. The date was set for Friday, March 10th, 2000. That evening, Sophia rushed home from school, eager to get ready. She tried on outfit after outfit, stepping out of her room each time to hear her family's feedback. They finally agreed on a bright red evening dress, elegant, flattering, and modest. She styled her hair in soft curls, added her favorite perfume, and paired the dress with heels and a clutch. By 10 p.m., she was ready. She gave a final twirl in the living room, and her family watched in admiration. She looked stunning, radiant. Before leaving, she promised to be home by 2 a.m. since she had a morning shift at the mall the next day. At 10:10, Sophia stepped into her beloved red Pontiac, waved goodbye with a bright smile, and drove off into the night. It would be the last time her family ever saw her alive. The next morning, her sister Marianne peeked into Sophia's room, expecting to find her getting ready for work. But the bed hadn't been slept in. Her uniform, work shoes, and employee badge were all still there. At first, they thought maybe she had gone straight to work, but a phone call minutes later shattered that assumption. It was Sophia's employer. She hadn't shown up for her shift, something that had never happened before. Now deeply concerned, the family began calling everyone they could think of, friends, co-workers, classmates, but no one had seen or heard from her since the night before. No one had the number of the boy she was supposed to meet. Sophia didn't own a cell phone, which was still common in the early 2000s, so tracking her was impossible. By that evening, with no leads and mounting fear, her mother Lourdes went to the police and reported Sophia missing. She provided a recent photo, described the red dress she had worn, and gave full details about her car, the bright red Pontiac that had become her daughter's pride and joy. Then came the chilling discovery. On Saturday, March 11th, the very next day, in the neighboring state of New Mexico, a vehicle was spotted, abandoned about 100 yards off the highway that connects the two states. It was a red Pontiac. The passenger side window had a bullet hole. Inside, investigators found dark stains, dried blood on the steering wheel, seat, and headrest. There were no signs of a struggle, but the evidence pointed to one thing: something violent had happened, and the driver, likely a young woman, had vanished. The car was transported to a forensic lab for examination, and authorities in El Paso were notified immediately. Sophia's family was contacted to confirm the vehicle's identity. It was hers. Panic turned to heartbreak. However, since the discovery occurred in another state, law enforcement had no immediate link between the vehicle and the missing girl from Texas. After running the registration, authorities confirmed the red Pontiac belonged to Lourdes Martinez, Lucio from Texas. When they contacted her, she explained the car had not been stolen but was driven by her daughter, who had been reported missing the day before. No one could understand how Sophia's car ended up abandoned in a desert across state lines, or where she might have gone. Lourdes was certain her daughter cherished that car and would never leave it behind. Willingly, something had to be wrong. One theory was that the car had been hijacked and Sophia may have been hurt, but there was still hope she could be found alive. However, with no immediate leads, law enforcement was left unsure where to even begin their search. The next day, Sunday, March 12th, a group of teenagers walking near the outskirts of El Paso noticed something bright in the desert and decided to take a closer look. As they got closer, they discovered the lifeless body of a young woman in a red evening dress. Horrified, they ran home to alert their parents, who quickly contacted the police. Within an hour, forensic investigators arrived at the scene. Officers found the young woman lying on her back, her face so badly disfigured she was unrecognizable. Her dress was soaked in blood and covered in sand. Although she had no identification, police were nearly certain they had found the missing girl from 2 days earlier. When the Martinez family was informed a body had been found, Lourdes refused to believe it. She was certain there had been some mistake and that her daughter was still alive. But any doubt disappeared when detectives showed her a photo recovered from the victim's bra. It was of Sophia holding her youngest brother. Sophia had always carried photos of her siblings in her wallet, but in her final moments, she had placed one close to her heart. The autopsy revealed that the cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds to the head. She had been shot 5 times in the face, with one bullet passing through and later found in the sand at the scene. The injuries were catastrophic, offering no chance of survival. There were also clear signs of a violent struggle, severe bruising, and other evidence of physical assault. The inside of her thighs showed abrasions and bruises, and internal injuries confirmed she had been sexually assaulted. DNA testing revealed biological evidence, and defensive wounds on her hands showed she had fought desperately for her life, but was overpowered. None of her belongings were found with her, except for the photo hidden in her clothing. Due to the damage to her body, dental records couldn't be used, and DNA confirmation was required to verify her identity. Toxicology results showed she had no drugs or alcohol in her system at the time of her death. Near the body, officers discovered multiple shoe prints. Most were blurred, but one clear impression allowed forensic teams to determine the shoe size and sole pattern. Inside the car, no fingerprints were found apart from Sophia's. Her purse was recovered, but her ID keys and cash were missing. Police advised the Martinez family to change their locks and install security systems since the killer had her ID and house keys. Fearing the killer could return, the family followed through, but they lived in constant fear. DNA collected from the scene was entered into the national database, but there were no matches, indicating the killer had no prior record. This made the case more difficult. Authorities also considered that the attacker might have crossed the border from Mexico, committed the crime, then fled back, making it harder to track him. The first suspects and a crucial lead when police learned that Sophia had gone on a blind date the night she vanished. Arranged by a co-worker, they quickly tracked down the two men involved. Since her family didn't have their contact details, officers went to her job at the mall. Justin, the co-worker who had arranged the date, was working that day and agreed to come in for questioning. The second man, Marcus, was also brought in. Marcus said he had agreed to meet Sophia at a club, but she never showed up. He and Justin waited until around midnight, then left. Justin only found out Sophia was missing the next day when she didn't show up for work. Both men were cooperative. They took polygraph tests, submitted DNA samples, and handed over the shoes they had worn that night. Results showed no connection to the crime. Their alibis were solid, confirmed by dozens of people who saw them at the club. During a deeper inspection of Sophia's car, investigators found a crumpled ATM receipt under the driver's seat. The timestamp showed that at 10:23 p.m., she had withdrawn $20 from a nearby ATM just a few blocks from home. This became a key lead, as the ATM and nearby buildings had surveillance cameras. The final moments caught on camera. Police reviewed footage from all available cameras, and what they discovered was disturbing. The crime had been recorded from multiple angles, letting investigators reconstruct the timeline. At 10:22 p.m., Sophia's red Pontiac pulled up to the ATM. She rolled down the window and withdrew $20. Footage confirmed she was alone. After withdrawing the cash, she lingered for a moment, using her compact mirror to touch up her lipstick. That's when a figure in black, who had pulled up, crept up behind the car. She didn't notice until he was right at the window. He pulled out a firearm and shot her in the head. However, it seemed the attacker didn't intend to kill. The bullet only grazed her cheek, clipped her nose, and exited through the passenger window. Wounded, Sophia pressed a tissue to her face and withdrew another $200. The car then pulled away from the ATM with the attacker now inside, holding a gun to her head. Within seconds, the vehicle disappeared from view, and what happened afterward remained unknown. It's important to note that this happened in the early 2000s, when security camera footage was grainy and low quality. It was impossible to produce a detailed composite sketch. All investigators could gather was that the suspect was a white male. Average height, slim build, possibly with facial hair. These details, along with video stills, were broadcast on local TV to alert the public and ask for help. After the news aired, Police received many tips, but none led anywhere. As weeks passed, the investigation stalled. No new evidence emerged. Then, at the end of March, a man contacted police saying he had found a driver's license near where Sophia's body had been discovered weeks earlier. The ID belonged to another local woman, and police feared she might have met the same fate. But when officers contacted the woman, they discovered she was alive and well. When they visited her residence, she explained that her handbag had been taken earlier that month, while she was at the same shopping center where Sophia had been employed. Detectives began to suspect that the attacker may have been watching possible targets beforehand, and they issued a public warning to alert other women. The following day, a young man came forward to admit he was responsible for stealing the purse. After seeing news coverage, he became frightened that police might link him to something far more serious. He willingly gave a DNA sample and was quickly eliminated from suspicion in Sophia's investigation. By mid-2000, the case had stalled completely. Hoping to revive the investigation, authorities offered a $10,000 cash reward for any tips leading to the suspect's arrest. Not long after, Sophia's family began collecting donations to raise the amount. Their campaign received wide community support, including help from local groups. By August, the reward had climbed to $55,000. Still, 6 months had passed without any breakthroughs. Even airing the case on America's Most Wanted failed to generate a strong lead. A breakthrough emerges, and a key witness steps forward on September 30th, 2000. A young woman contacted law enforcement claiming she had information about who was responsible, and she was willing to share it if she received the reward. Though officers had received misleading tips before, this caller said she could provide physical proof. Her name was Heather Napawasi, a 20-year-old mother of 2. She claimed that her boyfriend, Michael Jake, and their friend William Barkley had been behind the crime. As part of her statement, she turned over a badly charred driver's license that belonged to Sophia. Heather explained that she had remained silent out of fear for her safety, but now that Michael was behind bars and she had no income, she felt it was time to speak up for both justice and financial survival. She said that in early March, she was admitted to the hospital with kidney problems. At the time, William had been staying at her place along with Michael. None of them had jobs, and money was tight. On March 10th, William visited her room and had a hushed conversation with Michael. Heather overheard pieces of it and suspected they were planning something shady, though she assumed it involved drugs, something they'd both dealt with in the past. She didn't press for details. That night, both men left, taking a container of medical gloves from the supply area. Around 11 p.m., Michael returned and said they had gotten some cash. He claimed he had waited near an ATM and signaled to William. When someone pulled in, William, he said, approached the car, threatened the driver with a weapon, took the money, and forced them out before driving off in the vehicle. Even at this stage, investigators knew that details didn't line up with Sophia's case. Still, they let Heather finish. After midnight, a nurse entered and informed Michael that someone was downstairs to see him. It turned out to be William, who said they needed to dispose of the car. The two drove separate vehicles across state lines, left the Pontiac in a remote desert area, and returned home. Heather was discharged the next day and immediately grew nervous. She wondered whether the victim would report the attack. To reassure her, Barkley showed her a license with Sophia's name and address on it. He commented that the person could be dealt with if necessary. He then tossed the license onto a hot grill and watched it burn before casually heading to bed. A few days later, Heather saw a televised report about Sophia's murder and instantly made the connection. She recognized William in the grainy ATM footage and realized why he had suddenly shaved and cut his hair. When she asked Michael about it, he told her not to speak to anyone. She fished the burned license out of the grill and kept it hidden. She also saw Michael holding a keychain with the Pontiac logo. though she wasn't sure what he did with it afterward. In August, William moved out. Then, in September, Michael was jailed on unrelated drug charges. Feeling safer, Heather chose to report what she knew and try to collect the reward money. After receiving Heather's information, authorities brought in 23-year-old Michael Jake for questioning. To their surprise, he didn't deny being involved, and he agreed to tell his side of the story. He said he wasn't the one who killed Sophia, but admitted that he had helped his friend hide what happened. Michael explained that both he and William were strapped for cash and had planned to rob someone at an ATM. But when they saw the red Pontiac arrive and realized the driver was a young woman, Michael said he tried to stop the plan from going forward, but William misunderstood the signal and believed it meant to proceed. Michael admitted he was aware William had a gun, but said he never thought he would actually use it. Everything escalated so quickly, in just moments. The car was gone, vanishing into the night. Michael waited for about 30 minutes, hoping William would come back. When he didn't, Michael returned to the hospital to be with Heather. He maintained that he had no knowledge of what happened to Sophia after that point and denied knowing about any violence or her death. However, he did confess to helping dispose of the stolen vehicle. Over time, he learned more details about what had taken place, but chose to stay silent, fearing that coming forward would also land him in serious legal trouble. Later, investigators discovered a set of car keys on the roof of Michael's house, right where he had admitted tossing them. The man police believed was responsible. 20-year-old William Barkley was taken into custody in early October at his family home. Though he had never been officially charged with a crime before, many who knew him recalled years of troubling behavior. Since his youth, he had exhibited violent tendencies, physically attacking peers, former partners, and even his own mother. Still, no one had ever gone to the authorities. At the same time, he was known for his artistic abilities, and his work had even been featured in local art exhibits. During initial questioning, Barkley was evasive but did confess to the robbery and the killing, saying he needed the cash. When asked about the sexual assault, he claimed the encounter had been consensual and said the shooting was a mistake. As the interrogation continued and the weight of the situation began to sink in, Barkley changed his narrative. He started painting himself as a pawn, claiming the entire plan had been Michael's idea. According to this new version of events, it was Michael who had picked out the vehicle, assuming the driver of a red Pontiac would have plenty of funds in her account. But to their frustration, Sophia had only withdrawn $220, a sum that to them ultimately cost her life. As the case moved toward trial, the two former friends each tried to deflect responsibility onto the other. But the physical evidence tying Barkley to the crime was overwhelming. Investigators found the murder weapon, a .22 caliber handgun, at his residence. His DNA was present on Sophia, and footprints found at the scene matched a pair of sneakers recovered from his bedroom. On April 7, 2002, William Barkley was convicted on all charges. He was sentenced to death by lethal injection. That sentence was carried out 8 years later, in the spring of 2010. Throughout his time on death row, Barkley never expressed regret for what he had done. Later that same year, on November 3, 2002, Michael Jake was also convicted. He was found guilty of conspiracy and tampering with evidence and received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 40 years. Heather, who had come forward to expose the truth, was awarded the full $55,000 reward. But the money didn't bring her peace. She eventually lost custody of her children, and years later, at just 35, she passed away from complications related to her ongoing kidney illness. Thanks for watching, everyone. Your support truly means a lot. Don't forget to hit that like button, leave a comment, and share it with others. It really helps the channel grow. Your engagement makes a huge difference. See you in the next one.